Hi, I'm Andi Costello.
And I'm Shana O'Brien.
We are the Home Girls. And what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about kind of some of my favorite demographic of buyers. I like working with my first-time home buyers because they are kind of like kids and I'm kind of like a mom. So they let me boss them a little bit. You know, young families looking for their first home. But, you know, then you circle back in a couple of years and these are families that have now grown, adding children to the family, hopefully have made progression in their careers and are making more money. And we call them move-up buyers because they're ready to leave that starter home and move up to a larger home for their family.
And my advice is, if you are looking to trade up from your starter home, is to keep that as an investment property. If you were listening to our podcast last week, I'm a big fan of using real estate to build wealth. So we could talk about that. So you can either go to sell it, keep it as an investment property, but really what we're talking about today is, the signs of how do you know when you're just busting at the seams?
How do you know when it's time to move up? And that's a great point because you can just pull the equity out, use it as your down payment on your next property and convert that first home into a rental. And I think we've talked about that a little bit on the podcast before. But so some of the times that it's time to move on. Extra kid. I have clients right now that bought their house in, I think, 2016, and they have two, and they have a third on the way. And so they've opted to add on to their house because they're on a really big, huge, beautiful lot. So they can do that. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And I can tell you it's causing them more stress and the same amount of money as if they had just sold and bought another house.
Yeah, because who wants to have a new baby and live in a construction zone?
Right.
I mean, I don't have babies, but that totally does not sound like fun to me. I don't even want to live in a construction zone.
I don't
just
even
me.
want to live with a baby.
No. Either of those do not sound good. But yes, having a baby, or maybe your family's growing because your parents are moving in. They're aging and you want to help them age in place. There's a lot of talk, in the new community, build communities about, sort of the next generation homes, and making sure that maybe there's a little apartment so that your parents or in-laws have their own private space, but still feel connected to the family where they can age in place and you can keep tabs on them. So maybe your home, again, is still too small because you now want to have an extra person or two move into your home.
Exactly. That multi-generational living is a huge trend in real estate right now. And it's a wonderful trend.
Right.
I mean, I'm all for it, but it's a different kind of house than which you bought on your first salary out of college buying your first home.
Right. Or even just you already were in a good place and were happy with your home, but it's just your family's expanding in a different way other than adding a new child.
Yes.
Because I know most people that are parents don't want their kids boomerang back, so they're not necessarily going to move out of a house to buy a bigger house for adult children to move back home, but that is an option too, that you might have to have to trade up. That maybe you do want to help your young adult children. Maybe they are having babies and need some help, and maybe they are going to move back in. Maybe you do need a bigger house if that's again that multi-generational living. Then instead of helping your parents age in place or in-laws age in place, that now you have adult children that you want to help them sort of not age but grow their family in the same household.
And another reason you might want to move up is that you bought your starter home as a starter home. You were making a certain salary and this is what you could afford. When I'm working with clients they're not looking for their dream home, they're looking for their first home, I always make sure that we're running the numbers for that also as an investment property so that when the time comes to move on, is this a good rental? It's gonna, I don't want to help somebody buy something that's not going to have good resale value. So we're always looking at when it's time to go, you're going to be able to sell it and be okay. But just another aspect of it is looking at it of when I'm ready to move on, am I going to be able to use it as a rental? So you just might be making more money. You might not have any kids, but you started making more money and you're ready to just kind of move forward to a different demographic. You might have bought a house in the suburbs and now you want to live in a loft downtown. There are lots of reasons that you might just be kind of changing that lifestyle.
Yeah, those are good things to consider. Maybe you've decided you wanted to move out to the country. I have a client that moved up almost to Castle Rock and just thought country living was great until they realized that they really don't have any internet. And his job really relies on having internet. And so he's having to drive down to Kelso to get internet on the weekends. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. And so I would want to make sure, especially in our industry, and most of us nowadays, we are connected all the time, and making sure that you've got either good internet reception or good cell phone reception, if your career requires those, if you're working from home, that maybe is a time to maybe not necessarily move up, but move out into something different.
Yes. And I've had 2 clients, which we didn't even talk about this, but like the opposite of empty nesters. I had 2 clients that were living in kind of smaller spaces that they had downsized to because their kids grew up and went to college. And when their kids started having kids and they had grandkids, they moved back into larger homes so they could have a playroom for the grandkids, so they could have a yard. Like I had one that was in a condo down at Shorewood, they're nice condos, have a nice pool, nice amenities, but they wanted a yard and guest room for the kids to have and a playroom for the kids to have. So they went from that condo that they downsized to back into a more family-friendly home because nobody was moving in with them, but they just wanted to be able to host the grandkids.
That's a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of reasons that we've talked about today if you're thinking about moving up in terms of trading up into a house or just trading out into something different that's not suiting your current lifestyle. Life changes all the time, and when we think maybe, hey, I don't have plans to move for 5-10 years, and then you get a relocation or you have a job change or you're making more money or you get into a relationship or that relationship deteriorates. There's lots of reasons that people move that you really just can't plan for. That's life.
That's life, and we can help you through those life transitions.
Yes, we can.
And it's important, we're talking mainly to people right now. This is kind of geared to people that are in a home, that have already made a purchase. And just know that you're not ever stuck. I mean, sometimes people are stuck, but our market right now, there shouldn't be anybody that's upside down and just totally unable to sell what they have to move to something else. So if you're just curious about that, we can run numbers for you just to help you see where you are from an equity standpoint.
Yeah, very true. Very true. We every week have a home maintenance tip as we transition to the end of our podcast here. And if you are looking for a weekly guide of things to do in your home to keep it tip-top in shape for when you're ready to sell, you can text the word free to 77948 and we will send that guide over to you. And our tip this week is to inspect your heat exchangers. We'll actually have a HVAC company come in and inspect them because you can't typically see them without really knowing what you're doing. And some of the signs that you might need to have that inspection done is maybe there's some soot coming out of your heater, or you're smelling something weird, something like formaldehyde, which I haven't smelled since like high school biology. So I think we all know what that smells like. Can't get it out of your nostrils. And maybe there's some water coming out of the unit, and not necessarily condensation, but just other water that doesn't seem like it belongs. Or you're just hearing some cracking or looking at some visible cracking on the outside of your unit. You want to make sure you're calling your HVAC guy to come out and take a look. And if you don't have an HVAC guy, feel free to reach out to either of us because we certainly can hook you up with somebody that knows what they're doing. Yeah,
and that's something that affects the resale value of your home, because when you go to sell the home, they want to see that annual maintenance has been done, which is just that inspection and that clean out every year. The company should put a little sticker on the unit, and then when you go to sell, that's the first thing a home inspector looks at, is if that's up to date.
Yes, yes.
So to get the whole year's worth of tips, just text the word free to 77948. And to reach either of us, you can find us on iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio and other podcasty places.
And we are under Homegirls Podcast.com. And you will find us there or on any of those platforms as Shana mentioned.
All right. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Catch you next week.